Hello, everyone. I've got my college basketball DFS model updated for tonight's four-game slate, and I'll kind of go through it quickly with you all, and then I'll link it in the description down below so that you can pull up a copy for yourself and go through the data, the projections, the advanced stats, that kind of stuff, and try to put together a winning lineup for tonight. So, looking at the team overview section, we've got our four games tonight. And it looks like Marquette is the only team projected anywhere close to what they've scored on the season, so the rest are kind of in bad spots, especially Duke. Looking kind of rough for any of the Blue Devils tonight. But we'll look at their salaries and see if anything works out anyway. To get to individual player projections, go to the player pool at the bottom. And here's where everything comes together for what you need tonight and who stands out to me, both from a fantasy point per minute standpoint and then my own projections plus all their advanced stats and matchup ratings and things like that put together. Again, you'll have a copy of this so you can go through everything, look at all the advanced stats, look at my projections, look at their fantasy points per game, fantasy points per minute, projected fantasy points, and I'll talk about who I like tonight and why really quickly. So the main columns that I use when I'm trying to put together a college basketball lineup, I'm looking at column BI, their fantasy point plus minus. This gives me an idea of how they are projected to score relative to what they would need to hit value for me. So in column BH, this is their fantasy points needed to hit value based on their salary. It's going to be a little over 4x their salary each night. And then for back to column BI, we're looking at their average projected fantasy points based on what they've scored in the season, their fantasy points per minute multiplied by their projected minutes tonight, and then that is combined with my projection for their fantasy points, which is in column AQ over here. And we're subtracting that from their fantasy points needed, so the higher number we get here, the better of a value play they are. And then column BJ is the same thing, but it is my fantasy point projections only. So that's looking at what I have them projected for, subtracted by, or subtracting their fantasy points needed to see how likely they are to hit value or go above value. And then the final thing I like to use is column BR. This takes their projected fantasy points plus their rating score. It includes that. With the rating score is a metric, not just how good of a matchup it is, but also how good their advanced stats are. And these can be things like shot rate and usage rate and assist percentage and things like that. And that's compared to their salary to get another value rating. So I sort by those three different columns, and then I highlight the names that appear in the top 10. So this light green, like Kalkbrenner, he appeared once in the top 10 in those three categories. If you see bright green, like Filipowski, he appeared twice in the top 10. And if you see bright blue, like Adu, he appeared all three times in the top 10. So when I'm building my lineups, I like to start with the guys in blue because they're popping in the three ways I like to look at it. And what's nice tonight is that none of them are crazy expensive. So if we go Adu, Iguodaro, Connect, Watson, and Smith, we're looking at 6,700 to 8,200. We can probably fit all five in, but at least four of them, and then build around them. So once I've got my priority plays in, now I'm looking for salary savers. And Braden Huff is the first guy that actually looks really cheap. And I've only got him for 11 minutes, but he's really interesting tonight. Going against Purdue and Edey. I have no idea if the starting bigs are going to get in foul trouble. He might play more, or he might not play at all because Edey's just going to be too much for a freshman like Huff to handle. So he could play 11 minutes, he could play 4 minutes, or he could play 18 minutes. I have no idea. But if you download your copy of the model here, you can change his minutes and see how it affects his fantasy points here. So if you think that Huff is going to get like 17 minutes tonight, you put in 17 and he becomes one of the best plays on the slate. So I have not decided how I'm going to use Huff, if he'll be in every lineup or only about half the lineups, but he's looking like he could be a really nice way to save some salary tonight since we're trying to fit in those five mid to high priced guys. You can also sort by average projected fantasy points. Just get a raw number who's going to score the most points tonight. Obviously, Zach Edey is going to be the most likely to score the most points. But when you have this, you can look for guys whose salaries stand out relative to their projection to find guys that might not be top 10, but still could be good plays to build your lineup around. But again, there's other things you can look at. You can look at individual advanced stats like shot rate and usage and things like that. You can scroll through it all. And I typically like to sort by BI. That's the fantasy point plus minus. And try to work from the top down. So again, download your copy, follow the link in the description. You can adjust minutes, go through the spreadsheet here, find some stats that you want to use, or just use my projections, and hopefully you can put together a decent lineup tonight. Good luck, everybody.